We are in the Advent season, and one of the things about the Advent season is that it comes around every year. And so every year we talk about faith or hope, we talk about peace, we talk about love, we talk about joy, and we talk about the birthing of the awakened consciousness. But this activity, this process of Advent, is just a story, it's just an idea if we repeat the same stuff. If we recycle the same stories, if we're not learning and growing, then what is it? Then we're just reading Hallmark cards that say these words. Today is about peace. What does a spiritual practice around the idea of peace look like? How can we expand our experience of peace by expanding our spiritual practice? I got on my computer this morning, as I do every Sunday morning, to print out some words, some notes. And when I looked at the refreshed page, because it went through updates overnight, there were changes. And the changes showed up like little icons. The first icon I saw was the Zoom button with a cross through it. Click, click, no longer supported in this way. You need to go back to the developer and find out what you need. The next button I saw was iTunes. The next button I saw was photos. Who is attached to their photos? Who has some photo issues, like, oh, my photos. I don't exactly even know where my photos are. It's on my list to have a techie person sit with me and help me trace, where are they in the cloud? Do I have them backed up? I mean, I know they're there, but to see the little photos button with the cross through it. And then the next button I saw was iWeb, and it said iWeb cross through it. And I clicked on that button, and that goes to a couple of websites. It goes to Campaign for Consciousness. It goes to Erin McCabe Music, a few things that I am not techie enough to know how to do unless I push that button, make some updates, and push another button. Otherwise, and I've known for quite some time that I've been getting these little notifications saying at some point, these things are not going to be available to you. But to see it with a big cross through it this morning, and I thought, oh, all right, website's down. And then the next doozy was the Word documents. Word came up and it went, my peace was disturbed. My peace was definitely disturbed. Now, I knew also that I was getting some notifications about my Word program. I have quite an old computer, and I did try two different methods. I tried one computer program that I have access to putting on my other devices from our Unity computer system, so it can go on any devices. And I tried this probably over a year ago, and I got help trying it. None of us could figure it out. So then I bought a new program and I tried to put it on, and I spent, I don't know, hours with a developer on the phone getting it downloaded. And after we got off the phone, right, I went to do it the next time and it didn't work. So there you go. Word still not working. And my peace was disturbed, but not that much. I was looking at all of the things that worked, and I found my little button where I have some notes, and luckily I don't even know if I can open up any old Word documents or not, or if that's all gone. But what that did, it gave me this little sense of urgency, right? I no longer can put this aside. I have to figure it out now. I have to be present now. I have 1 week in order to problem solve all of this. What has disturbed your peace? Obviously, in light of everything going on in our world, these are trite examples. Who cares about your whole computer when you're talking about life, right? One of my least favorite things is reading little things that say, you know, when I'm driving and at a stoplight, then there's a red light and I'm frustrated. I always read those things and I say, really? Like, really, that's the best example we have of disturbing our peace? So who cares about my computer? But certainly there have been things that have deservedly disturbed our peace, right? Lately, maybe with relationships, maybe with world issues, but we have found our peace disturbed. Do we have a practice that is substantial enough, that is growing enough to support our well-being and to support the presence of peace. What disturbs your peace? What is currently disturbing your peace? Are you aware of it? Have you noticed it? Noticed it in a way that you have invited in the spiritual practice, that you have invited in the source of your being, the source of all good, to support you. What aids your peace? Have you thought about that recently? Have you measured it? Have you taken it into account? Have you appreciated what supports your peace? What do you do for self-care? What do you do to create peace when it's disturbed? And is it working for you? Or has it dried up? Is it no longer lifting you in the way it used to lift you? You know, I was reading an article, and in the article there was a video of a doctor that's treating people, and the doctor just kind of had a come home moment of just saying, maybe I'm not doing as well as I thought I would. They were treating a patient, and it happened to be a COVID patient, and they were treating a patient, and the patient had Nazi tattoos all over themselves. And this doctor was a Jewish man, a Jewish doctor, and had a very diverse team of people working for him. And the doctor, admitted that it wasn't as easy as it usually is to have and apply deep compassion and to move on. Like, could you imagine that you are putting yourself and your community in harm's way, and you're supporting another that wants you to help them, that's reaching out for help, that you want to help, you took a vow to help, but you feel a little compassion fatigue, that it crossed your mind. And imagine that disturbance, that it even crossed your mind when you're giving this amazing gift, and then you have an experience that disturbs your peace. I thought when I read the article, how amazing that doctor was present, was listening, so that they could engage in self-care, that they could get support. There was an acknowledgement that support was needed. There was acknowledgement that at this time, a greater degree of practice. The doctor even referenced a mantra that they usually use every time when engaging in deep compassion and care, a mantra. And the doctor said that mantra is not doing it as much as it used to. So what is it that's kind of dried up or tired and old in your life? What is it that's the story on rerun, that's the Hallmark card, that it's just not doing it anymore? And where do we need to re-engage and expand our practice when it comes to peace? Marianne Williamson talked about peace on the global stage. She has for a long time initiated the idea of having a Department of Peace, supporting that idea of having a Department of Peace, saying it's really important, it's really critical. Because we can ask ourselves, what is the cost of not pursuing peace? What is the cost of not cultivating peace? What is the cost of not having a peace practice? How are we to arrive at peace if we have no goal, no intention, no commitment, whether it's globally or whether it's internally for peace? The eyes and the mind and the heart begins to go to where its focus is drawn. And it's part of our spiritual practice to be conscious about that focus. So what's going on in your Department of Peace? Do you have one? What are the activities there? I think there is a risk, if we're not conscious about our spiritual practice around peace. There are some casualties that can happen. When we're not conscious around a practice of peace, we can pass on our pain. And when we pass on our pain, there can be ricocheting effects. When we show up and we come from our pain, we can inadvertently create ripples and waves of pain that go on and on. Any teacher knows this. It's the simple thing of, as a teacher, you're not afforded the luxury of showing up in a bad mood. You really are not. It will come back to bite you in a moment, and you will see how it is transferred on. Like, you know, when those kids jump into, what do you call it? When the kids jump into the pool with their bodies together and the big splash, right? But as emissaries of light, as bringers of truth, as individuals in a conscious community who is here to support love in all forms and to bring God to this experience of being human, none of us want to afford that casualty. The cost of not pursuing peace is that we can live in extended suffering. Sometimes we can't even hear ourselves, our own thoughts, our own needs, our own ideas, or we just don't honor ourselves. We don't honor who we are and how we're here to express and show up, what our gifts are, or what our nature is. We don't honor ourselves. And when we don't honor ourselves, people get caught in the crossfire, don't they? People get caught in the crossfire. I think about all of the stories of people who felt pressure to marry someone of an opposite gender because it was expected of them, because they weren't accepted, because their nature was denied. And then someone else was caught innocently in the crossfires of that love or that experience, and had to walk that journey with someone else's awakening. And the pain that that can cause, especially when people don't have the awareness to dive into the good, to look at the grace, to see life as a spiritual practice and see us all as walking together on journeys of awakening in this practice. But there are costs to not pursuing peace, to not honoring ourselves and our true nature. We can live in extended suffering. When we're not being true to ourselves, we're stifling or stuffing our feelings in order to offer to maybe someone else what we think is peace. But we can't offer someone else peace of mind if we are destroying our own. Acting out of duty or hiding ourselves, hiding our personality to please someone else, that's false peace. And it will only create an environment internally where we are divided against ourselves. So how can we take on these ideas of not being divided against ourselves and not being divided against another? We can simply allow the real self to be born, allow the real you to be born. That is what this season is all about. This season is not just about 2,000 years ago. This season is about you. This season is about me. This season is about honoring our authenticity, honoring our story, our history, and allowing our true self to be born and reborn every year in expanded ways, to doing what our soul is called to do. One of my dear colleague friends, Reverend Temple Hayes, she says, doing what your soul is calling for is easy. Going against your soul is hard. Doing what your soul is calling for is easy. Going against your soul is hard. That's something for us to remember, especially in those moments where we feel like being true to ourselves is hard. if we can remember this statement, then we can be assured that when we're on the other side of it, we will realize that what it was taking to hold it together was harder. What it was taking to fake it, what it was taking to conform, what it was taking to live with our peace of mind disturbed was harder. Take it from anyone who's recovered from any sort of addiction, from any sort of severely dysfunctional relationship, or any sort of experience where they didn't honor themselves, and start with peace right here. Peace is possible, but without a spiritual practice, it's not probable. So what is the practice about? I think the practice is about three things. It's about how we respond or we react when we're not feeling at peace. It's about how we can be proactive, how we can prevent things that disturb our peace. And it's also about the key that's a gift. And that's grace and being aware of grace. So as far as how we prevent disturbance of peace, how we become proactive in our own internal department of peace, it's ours to look at our emotional regulation and mastery. It's ours to look at where our emotions run our lives, our reactivity time to things, our breath work and how we apply it and how we use it. Because when our emotions run our lives, we know physiologically, we know our brain does not make the best decisions. We know that we kind of not turn off, because we can never turn off access to the divine, but we turn away from it, don't we? When we're in fear or we're in discord, we turn away from divine understanding. And we don't always feel the strength of our being. Our nervous system learns these responses. So the more we allow our emotions to run our lives, and we're not talking about not honoring our emotions, we're talking about flipping out, we're talking about spiraling down, we're talking about giving someone else the keys to our emotional car. Which one of us hasn't done that this year? Which one of us hasn't gone, whoa, car's out of the driveway, driving down the street, I'm not even in it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to get triggered. It doesn't feel good to react rather than respond. It doesn't feel good to pass on our pain. Our nervous system, though, learns these reactions. Endorphins happen. When we allow our peace to be disturbed, there is a whole reaction that goes on that becomes fairly automatic until we step into a spiritual practice. And we're not here to constantly be having moments of disturbance where we spiral down, or to let someone else determine our peace. We're here to be the one that has a practice, to be the one that can take the first step back, to be the one that is so self-aware that we know when to engage our spiritual practice, that we know there's nothing wrong with us, that this is part of the human condition, but for wanting better for ourselves, for others, for the world around us. Just imagine for a moment how the world would transform with a peace practice. Do you ever wonder sometimes how it's not worse globally? If you think about what happens on individual levels, if you think about what happens on your own mind, and then you go to the global stage where you see, a lot of killing and a lot of discord and a lot of awful. And then you think about how you feel in your own life and what disturbs your peace. You think, kind of surprising we're not in a worse place. I mean, imagine if that was happening in your home, how you would feel, what your practice would be. So we all need a practice around peace so that we know how to respond when we're feeling ourselves out of it. We go to school for all sorts of things, but we don't always go to school for spiritual emotional development. So what sets you off? What triggers you? What triggers the people around you? Do you know? Are you aware? And have you intuited a practice to support your own well-being and to support theirs? Rather than going over and going through the same thing, expecting different results. Can you learn your world? Whether the triggers are external or whether they're internal, can you learn them and show up differently in a way that creates peace, both for yourself and others? Have you noticed when you can't stop, when you're no longer in control, or like Eckhart Tolle says, you're in a pain body? What happens? Can you begin to listen at those times, to go within, to take on a practice? What is going on in your department of peace? So the first key is how we respond or how we react. And the next is how we can be proactive and how we can prevent things. So I had a big day yesterday. It was a big emotional day, and I won't get into it. But it was one of those days of unexpected intensity, but not the kind you can see on the outside, the kind that happens on the inside, where so many little things probably happened, so many little things that were hardly logged because you didn't even have time, right, to log them or to process them or to sit with them. But I started noticing a narrative in my mind. I started noticing a narrative that pointed to disturbance, that pointed to my peace being out the door. I noticed resignation. I noticed I have very colorful internal dialogue. Very colorful internal dialogue. And I have learned not to restrain it. I've learned just to watch it. So I watch it, I listen to what it says, and whoa, whoa. And I just allow it to be. But by the time I got home, I recognized where I was, and I recognized that I needed to create peace for the evening. I didn't even actually think about the fact that the talk on peace was the next day. That didn't even cross my mind. What crossed my mind was that there was Sunday morning the next day that was coming up. But how funny that it was actually a conversation around peace. And I have learned when I am triggered to pay attention, to slow down, to give myself grace, and to take it easy. So that's what I did. I shifted the evening, I shifted the activities, and I went within to think about what I needed. And I realized I needed to slow down. I needed to feel what I was feeling. I needed to honor the experience. I needed to not analyze all of the little things, but rather than acting out or passing it on, I needed to be with myself for a little bit. And so when I got my daughter back from her beloved, who she spent the day with, are you all a little relieved to know that she wasn't with me all day? Good thing it didn't have to do with her. No. She was delighting in her own heaven with our beloved. She was just delighting. But I was just really aware of how my energy was going to go if I didn't shift the evening. So I decided it was going to be easy dinner, and it was going to be books and to bed. And if we had to stay in bed for 2 hours and read, I was fine with that. So I was going to get all the books ready and we would just keep reading. We were going to get in bed at 6 something. And if you know me, that's not like me to just make a plan and do it and get in bed early. But I decided 6 something, we're getting into bed with a bunch of books and we're just going to take it easy. And so I went to go get my cell phone and just check it and decide if I was going to leave it downstairs or bring it upstairs with me. And as I picked up my cell phone, a text had just come in. And it was a text from a really good friend of mine that I haven't seen in a very, 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 very long time. And the text came in and it said this: "We are literally in front of your house trying to figure out how to get to Longview Lake to go look at the lights." And my brain went, what? You know, I haven't seen this friend in almost a year. And I said, and I also don't get a lot of things right in the moment they come in, right? I was about ready to go upstairs. So I was about ready to miss this. And I didn't need my phone, but I just happened to go over my phone to my phone at that exact moment. I lifted it up. I looked at it. And, you know, when you see something like that, you go, was that an hour ago? Was that, how long ago was that? Right? And I text back immediately, right now, say hi from the driveway. And in the midst of the cold, we go outside and we go to see these friends in the driveway. And I just started crying. I just started crying because that was exactly what I needed. And I didn't know I needed it. And I didn't know it would be there, and I couldn't have planned it. But it was a moment of grace. And when I went out there and said this was just what I needed, and I think I'm going to start crying, the reaction back from the car was, me too. The text I got right after that said something to the effect of how wild and bizarre that was, because my friend was literally crying in the afternoon saying how much they missed their friends and saying that this experience must have been spirit guided, because she was asking herself why their GPS was taking them to Erin's house, which is nowhere near the Christmas lights show. Nowhere near the Christmas lights show. But the GPS brought them right to my driveway. And I texted her back and said, without going into the story, you have no idea how much I needed this tonight. It brought peace and calm to my heart. And what it was for me was the great reminder of the third key. And the third key to peace, the third key that must be a part of our Department of Peace internally, is grace. The ability to recognize the divine appointments, to recognize the gift, and to recognize that we are loved beyond measure and we are supported. Hypatia Hasbrook wrote the book, The Trip to Bethlehem, which is a metaphysical interpretation of the trip to Bethlehem. And she says, we experience God's grace whenever we receive an unexpected and, so far as we can see, undeserving blessing. She talks about the stages of the birth story and the stages of this journey. And she says that aspects of our thinking and feeling nature begin their journey towards Bethlehem, the point in consciousness where the Christ or higher self emerges. Grace is the great gift, and it is here supporting each one of us when we have eyes to see and ears to hear. So let's take a moment to reflect on grace in your life recently, grace in your life this year, grace internally, and grace around us. Because it's not just about how we respond or react to things or trying to be proactive and create peace. It's about allowing grace in to teach us and to restore our peace. So who or what has supported your peace of mind this year? Who has supported your peace of mind this year? Who has helped to keep you sane? Who has kept you sane? What's kept you sane? I know on the external level, I'm so grateful to Zoom, that we have Zoom and that we can connect in these ways. I'm grateful to all of the late night TV shows hosts and the comedians who have provided serotonin for me. I am grateful to the funny ones on social media who are always posting quirky things that just make me stop and make me laugh, that get my attention. Yeah, you. What has supported your peace? Nature, certainly, for so many of us, the earth has supported our peace lately. I have a beloved that watches my daughter throughout the week on Sunday mornings, even takes her to their house on Saturday. That supports my peace in a way that I couldn't even imagine, not just because I have the dedicated time and space to do my work, but also because I get to witness how loved she is, and I get to share her with other people who adore her and have welcomed her into their home. They're talking about getting an extra little mini toilet seat and a stool. That's how much love we're talking about. Don't let this year go by without logging in your internal memory, without creating the memos in your Department of Peace about who has blessed you. I have a beloved friend who is very crafty, who showed up at my door with a box of pre-prepared crafts, all in their own little baggie for the days of Christmas, so that we could have an easy experience doing crafts. I have this Advent calendar that was made for me with a bag of stickers to go on each day so that every morning we can experience Advent. I have a little tiny mailbox. A little tiny mailbox that was given to me by a beloved, that every morning I put a different surprise and a different little thing, a little lesson, and I have it sitting on the table so we can start the day, start the morning with a spiritual practice of doing the Advent calendar and opening it to see what's inside. And as grace has it, there's always something to learn, some gift to receive. So let's engage in our spiritual practice of peace and acknowledge the peacemakers. You know, the master teacher is called the Prince of Peace. Who is your Prince of Peace? Who are your princesses of peace? Do they know? Do they know the impact that they have on your peace of mind and your heart? Do they know that they're a reminder to you that God is alive and well and active in your experience? You know, Mary, on this journey of birthing the Christ, I can only imagine, after that harrowing journey and having all of the options to have peace disturbed, I can only imagine that in the moment of holding that beautiful baby boy, it was all put into perspective. It was all put into its place. And I can only imagine that Joseph, and whatever you suppose he went through, whatever your Joseph story is about what that man went through, that the moment he beheld that magnificent light in that baby boy, that everything was put into perspective. Because when we see the gifts, when we see the beauty, the struggles shrink in size and peace is restored. So reach in and reach out. Honor your peace practice and let it meet you in the moment. And honor the Prince of Peace by celebrating the grace in life. Namaste.